All right, today we're going to take a journey, not just through space, but deep into time, to uncover the incredible lost story of Mars, a world that, it turns out, might have been the first cradle of life in our entire solar system.
And it all really boils down to this one huge question. You've probably seen the headlines, and it's forced us all to ask, is this it? Did we finally find what we've been searching for decades? Well, the answer, as you might guess, is a little complicated.
To really get what's going on, you have to think of this discovery not as finding an alien, but as picking up a faint signal, like a whisper from a world that died billions and billions of years ago.
And this, right here, is the key thing to understand, put perfectly by one of the scientists on the project. We haven't found living microbes. No, what we found are clues, possible fossilized breadcrumbs of something that was once alive.
So, where did this all happen? It happened in a place called Jezero Crater. Now, this spot is special. Billions of years ago, it was a huge lake, fed by a winding river delta. I mean, if you were going to look for signs of ancient life, this is exactly the kind of place you'd go. And it's where our Perseverance rover has been digging around.
So what did it actually find? Okay, so in this mudstone, which, by the way, is fantastic at preserving tiny fossils, it found a few things. First, organic molecules, the building blocks of life. Second, a very specific cocktail of iron-rich minerals like vivianite and greigite. And finally, these weird patterns in the rock that they've nicknamed leopard spots.
Now here is the kicker. Here's why scientists are losing their minds over this. As Dr. Clutas says, when you find this exact combination of things, the organics, those specific minerals, all together, here on Earth, it is always connected to life. It's like finding a biological fingerprint.
To really appreciate just how big a deal this is, we've got to rewind the clock. I mean, way, way back. Because it raises an incredible question. Was Mars not just another habitable world, but maybe the very first one? So, the history of Mars is pretty much split into 4 big chunks of time. The really early days, the pre-Nochian, is when the planet was just forming. But the era we care about is the second one, the Nochian. That was Mars's childhood, and it's when things were just right for life to get started. It's almost impossible to picture now. But back then, early Mars might have actually been a nicer place to live than early Earth. Seriously. It had a thick atmosphere, it had clouds, it had rain, it had massive oceans. One scientist called it the beachfront property of the solar system. Just the perfect spot for life to get its start. But then, something went terribly, catastrophically wrong. This beautiful paradise started to die. And this is the story of how Mars lost its most important defense, its shield.
You see, the problem started deep down in the planet's core. It was molten, and that churning liquid metal generated a powerful magnetic field. But as the small planet cooled down, that core solidified. The engine shut off. And just like that, its protective magnetic shield just flickered out and disappeared.
Without that shield, Mars was a sitting duck. It was completely exposed to something called the solar wind, this relentless stream of charged particles blasting out from the sun. And over millions of years, these particles just sandblasted the Martian atmosphere, ripping molecules away one by one and carrying them off into deep space. So as the air got thinner and the water started to either freeze solid or just boil away into space, you have to imagine what it was like for any life that might have existed. It would have been a desperate, losing battle for survival. This was truly life's last stand on Mars.
And think about the contrast. Around 3.7 billion years ago, right when primitive life was really getting a foothold here on Earth, pumping oxygen into our air, the exact opposite was happening next door. On Mars, the shield was gone, the air was vanishing, and the oceans were drying up. 2 sister planets on 2 completely different paths.
So what do you do if you're a microbe on a dying planet? You go down. The only hope would have been to retreat from the surface, deep underground, into water-filled aquifers, into cave systems, or maybe huddled around warm geothermal vents, anywhere to hide from the radiation and the biting cold.
And after that desperate fight, well, then came the silence. A long, quiet era where Mars just slowly became the frozen, red desert that we know and see today.
This one number really says it all. The average temperature on the surface of Mars right now is minus 60 degrees Celsius. Just an unbelievably hostile, frigid world.
And it's been like this for a very, very long time. For almost 3 billion years, Mars has been pretty much static, a cold, dry, rusty museum planet, with its entire dramatic story locked away in its rocks.
But here's where the story takes an absolutely wild turn, one that connects the fate of this dead world directly to us. What if the story of Martian life didn't actually end? What if it just moved house?
Get this. We have actual pieces of Mars right here on Earth. When giant asteroids have slammed into Mars over the eons, the impacts were so huge they blasted Martian rocks clear into space. And over 400 of those rocks have eventually landed here, on our planet.
Which brings us to this mind-bending theory called panspermia. It's the idea that super hardy little microbes could actually survive being blasted off a planet, travel through the freezing vacuum of space, and then land on another world, basically seeding it with life. And that leads to the ultimate question, doesn't it? Let's recap. We know Mars was probably habitable before Earth was. We know for a fact that rocks have traveled from Mars to Earth. So, is it really so crazy to ask if the original spark of life, our spark, didn't actually start here at all? Are we all, in a way, Martians?
Look, we don't have the answers. Not yet. The rovers on Mars are amazing, but they're limited. To really know for sure what's going on with those leopard spot rocks, we need to get them here, into our best labs on Earth. And that's the whole point of the Mars Sample Return mission, which is hopefully going to bring them back in the early 2030s. So, we'll end with this thought to chew on. If that mission confirms that life really did once exist on Mars, then we have to ask ourselves, was that the end of its story? Or, when its first home became unlivable, did life just pack its bags, hitch a ride on a meteorite, and move to the nicer, warmer, wetter neighborhood next door? Did it just move here?